Joining us now from Lahore in Pakistan is one of Pakistan's greatest names of Pakistani cricket. We are very pleased to welcome to 98 Not Out, Mr. Aamir Sohail. Aamir, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on your show anyways.
I gather it's a very busy time in your country with the red list and people trying to scramble to get repositioned. How have you been coping?
Oh, well, my daughter and my wife were supposed to be there before the 9th, and it was hectic, let me tell you that. And, getting a flight was an ordeal. But finally, it happened. They are back in Oxford, and I'm happy about it.
Excellent, excellent. So for our younger listeners that maybe don't know, I should point out that Aamir is a veteran of 47 Test matches, 156 ODIs, and was a part of that famous Pakistan side that won the World Cup in 1992. What are your greatest memories, Aamir, of that career?
Well, the greatest memories, obviously, if you're growing up as a cricketer, you want to represent your country. And when I got my Test cap, that was the greatest moment. Yes, I represented Pakistan at the World Cup, but for a budding cricketer to get a Test cap is a big moment. And it happened in '92 during that English tour. And I was given my cap during the first Test match of that series, played in Birmingham. So that was a proud moment. And there were plenty other, winning the World Cup and captaining Pakistan were other joyous moments. But the proud moment was when I get the Test cap.
And I guess appearing at Lord's for the first time in a Pakistan shirt?
Yeah. I played my second Test match there. And, I did okay. And I still regret that I was playing so well, and I could have scored 100 on my, first Test match at Lord's, but I missed out. Good memories of that tour, and also whenever I came over to England and played my cricket.
That would have been a dream, a century, your first visit, my word. And the 92 World Cup, I remember that. You and I are very similar age, so I'll ask you in a minute about your heroes growing up and the great names you played alongside. But for me, I remember Javed, Imran, Sarfraz, and we were looking last week. Mudassir Nazar had his birthday last week, and I remember his performance in England, particularly '82, I think, was when he really made a name for himself over here.
Yeah, he was. Mudassir Nazar was like, a role model for us. And, one thing about Mudassir Nazar was that he was always helpful. Whenever it came to the youngsters, he was always there. He had all the time for the youngsters to actually impart his experience and knowledge of the game. And, I always respected that chap. My childhood heroes, I would say I was really impressed with Wasim Hassan Raja. May his soul rest in peace. He was a fantastic guy, very helpful as well. And he was the one who actually turned my career. I used to bat in middle order. He was the one who was insistent that I should open the innings. And he kept on giving me the confidence. Yes, you can play the new ball very well. You don't have any problems with the pace. So you start opening the innings. And upon his insistence, I started to open the innings, and eventually I got the opportunity to play for Pakistan. Then when I was growing up, David Gower, what an elegant player he was. And for a left-hander, he had to be the role model. And then there were quite a few others. Ian Botham was my hero. We used to actually ask our friends and, family that record Test matches played in England and send it to us. And at that time, we had VHS tapes and beta and all that. So we used to watch, and our friends used to gather, sit down and watch batting and bowling of heroes. And then Alan Border was there as well. Javed Miandad, I learned a lot from him. There's a long list of players who I actually tried to follow.
Isn't there a famous quote about Ian? But I think it was in the '92 World Cup final, was it, where he was out for a duck, and you said to him, you should maybe send your mother-in-law into bat. Is that true?
We had a chat about that, actually. We had a chat about that in '96. I remember I fractured my scaphoid bone, and I was not playing that test match at Leeds, and I was having a look at the pitch, and so Ian Botham was there. So I went up to him, shook hands, and I said, "Let the bygones be bygones. If I was over the line, I apologize and all that." And then he asked me that, "Why don't you come and have a chat over a cold beverage after the game?" which we did, and I gave my point of view, and where he was coming from was true as well. So that message was actually sent across to the cricket board as well. That okay, we have to cater for foreign players if they come from a different culture. We should be able to compensate for that. Provide them with off the field activities and all that. So which started to happen, and I gave him my point of view. I told him, I said, "Look, you were my role model, and we used to follow you. And something written in the book about the country, wasn't fair. That was generalizing."
Yeah.
And then he gave me his point of view. Look, I was flamboyant when I came over to Pakistan. The pitches were dead. And at that time, we were not allowed to go out and all that. It was like suffocating. So, I heard him, but we patched up, and, we got friends now.
That's really good to hear. But it's an interesting, I think from then until this day, I think it's a real trait of Pakistani cricket, and actually Pakistan as a nation. There's a lot of passion within the game, but, it's played by passionate people. I wouldn't say aggressive. I think aggressive may be going a bit too far, but certainly there's a lot of fire in the belly when you see all these players, and to now and going all the way back to then. And I think you were pretty much typical of that style of play and the approach to the game. Would you say that's a fair comment?
Well, look, like you said, it's people are very passionate about it. I would say it's the most revered game in Pakistan. And when you talk about even subcontinent, and when you talk about representing your country, you have to have fire. You got to have passion, and then you got to have that attitude to be able to go out there and perform. And when I remember when I was playing, there was a battery of fast bowlers wherever we went, and there were quality spinners. So if you didn't have the attitude and the aggression, it was very difficult to survive. So you got to have that for any professional. You've got to have attitude, and attitude only comes, when you're sure of yourself, and you want to compete, and you want to do well. So you see, even now there are so many aggressive players. Fakhar Zaman is doing so well. He's one of the most aggressive batsmen in the world nowadays, and he's doing it quite aptly for Pakistan, and he's quite adept at that.
Have you got some questions?
I have, yeah. I have some questions from my Star and the Army friends, actually. And one of them would be, and I do think it is a problem in Test cricket, why has Pakistan failed to produce a potent opening pair since yourself and Saeed?
The thing is, what happened, when me and Saeed were going well, and even before that, there wasn't a problem. We had Ramesh Raja, who was doing so well for Pakistan. We had Mudassir Nazar, we had Mohsin Hassan Khan. There were quite a few. Before that, Sadiq Muhammad, Majid Khan, they were all great players. But the problem is, once we decided to have players who didn't have the technique of the openers, but we promoted them to go up the order and open the innings for Pakistan in hope of getting, if me and Saeed were getting 110 runs in 15 overs, in hope of getting 150 runs, that was wrong. Because in my opinion, what you show on TV, the youngsters are going to follow. It's a message for the youngsters that, okay, if you want to play for Pakistan, you have to play like that guy who's opening the innings for Pakistan. And that's where it all faltered. But in the process, we did have some good openers. We could have groomed them. But, when you talk about openers, when you talk about new ball ballers, any kind of sportsman, you need to give them a bit of time to settle down. You have to ignore a couple of failures. You have to, turn a blind eye. Just keep on giving them the confidence. Okay, you got the ability, you got the technique. Things will happen for you. You have to stick with the players. But chopping and changing didn't help Pakistan. But even now, look, Fakhar Zaman was doing well. A few failures, he was dropped from the side. Then we had Imamul Haq. It's about player management. So that's where we are lacking. If we learn how to manage the players in a proper way, then your question will be answered.
In fact, I mean, we have the same problem, of course, in England, don't we? So it's not purely a Pakistan problem. You know, we've got cries for Sibley and Burns to be dropped by everybody now because they failed in India. You know, most English batsmen fail in India their first time.
That's where selectors, they need to do the diligence. You know, when you talk about openers, you got to have technique, which, what the term I should use, hermetically closed, I should say, technique for the openers. You know, if you have a solid defensive technique, and, you know, every stroke is basically an extension of a defensive stroke almost. So if you have a solid technique, you know, hermetically tight technique, then you can excel. But what we lack at the moment, when I look around, we actually don't look at that. You know, if you start doing that, look at the technique, look at a player who could actually leave the ball, who could actually defend the ball. And if he's after that, then good things will follow. But we just ignore the fact.
Do you think that white ball cricket has had it? I mean, I think it's caused an expansion of shots for the lower order batsmen, middle order batsmen. But do you think to a degree that's been damaging for your opening batsman?
Cricket has evolved, and it's going to keep on evolving. You know, nowadays, if you talk about batsmanship, if you talk about other sports like golf or baseball, you know, those things are combining. So you are actually looking at different strokes which are unorthodox. I have no problem with that. But the thing is, I always believe that a limited player has to do that. If a batsman who's got the ability to maneuver the length, okay, if you want to upset the bowler, if you think he's bowling on a line and length which is going to be which brings peril for you. So then you try out different things. Okay, I'm going to improvise. I'm going to make him or force him to run away from that dangerous line of length. So that's where you have to improvise. Otherwise, if you talk about great batsmen, they didn't have to do that. No. You know, if you look at the strike rates now, Viv Richards did it in 70s and 80s. So he seldom played such strokes. So I think I have no problem with that. But to see them executed quite often, I think it might for the purist, you know, who are like aficionados of the game. For them, it might be irritating, but I have no problem with that.
So actually, an interesting question from Aamir, one of my friends, was, as an opening batsman facing the opening bowling spells, did you yourself have any techniques to frustrate the bowlers to get inside their heads? So that's the putting them off their line that you're talking about there.
Yeah, I learned it from Javed Mia, that great Javed Mia. He said, if you think the bowler is going to dominate, just try and break his thinking process. Just rile him up for, you know, by saying something, or maybe if he's bowling, you know, just outside the off stump, try and stand on middle and off stump. So you should be able to play the ball towards onside. So different things he taught us. So yeah, you have to do different things. At times, you know, if a bowler is bowling outside the off stump, he's just angling the ball away. You know, at times you have to move towards the off stump. At times you have to stand outside the leg stump to be able to create that room to free your arms. You know, it depends what type of a bowler you're actually playing against. So, you know, and then you have to think on your feet, improvise.
I remember Javed and Dennis Lilly. That was a brilliant confrontation.
I saw him doing it for so many bowlers. Oh man, he was amazing.
So an interesting question, actually. So rather than, I don't know whether it's one you'd like to answer, but who are the worst pair of opening bowlers you faced rather than the best pair? I'm not sure it's a question you'd want to answer there, really.
I would say worst. I would say Devon Malcolm. I know, he really used to scare you because he didn't have that control. On his day, he was the most deadliest bowler. But not on his day, you know, The worst bowler for me is where you cannot predict what's coming. You can only improvise once somebody's predictable. Okay, he's bowling this line and length. If I do this, I'll be able to dominate this bowler. But once a bowler doesn't have the control, he doesn't know what he's looking to do, it becomes mighty difficult. So, but let me tell you, he was the quickest I ever faced.
How do you, I mean, the question from me, actually, looking at your 205 at Old Trafford, wow, amazing. How do you concentrate for that long?
Look, let me tell you, people might, quite a few people said that was your best innings, but I don't regard it as my best innings. Actually, for any professional, there are good days and there are bad days. And, there are days when everything is happening for you. You don't even have to try. So that was one of that sort of a day where I went out. Initially, we had to struggle. The ball was flying. It was a different pitch, unlike English conditions. It has steep bounce. There was pace and everything. We had to adjust initially. And I remember in the first over, I hit the ball, the first ball for a boundary. There were 3 slips in place, and a slip was removed. And I think on the 4th ball, I had to deal with the steep bounce. I had to leap in the air and try to fend that one. It actually gloved. I gloved it, and it went past that 3rd slip. And from there on, from where the fielder was removed, from there on, I had that feeling that it's going to be my day, because in the first over, it doesn't happen that 3rd slip is removed. So after that, you just keep on hitting the middle of the bat, and it just happened.
Remarkable. What a fantastic memory. So what is your favourite innings?
My favourite was against Australia. That was 94. I got injured. I got hit on the head and I was hospitalized. I had a few concussions and all that. And that was the 3rd test match at Lahore. And we were winning the series. We were 1 test match up in that one. We won the match in Karachi. And I was in hospital. I saw 5 wickets fell. And at tea time, I asked the doctor give me a painkiller because I couldn't move my neck. So he gave me a painkiller. I went out to bat with Salim Malik, and we managed to save the innings. I think I batted for about good 90 minutes without scoring a run. And, I actually played almost 4 sessions to be able to draw the match and win the series. And I think it was against my nature. It was kind of a test of my ability. I went out there, I kept on defending, and eventually managed to save the test match and scored 100 in the process. So I regard it as my best innings.
I suspect now you'd have been concussion substituted out, wouldn't you? Do you think that's a positive thing for cricket now that we have that situation?
You've got to be careful. You've got to be careful. Yeah, there are a few incidents where you had to think, how to avoid that. So I don't mind that.
I think I watch rugby throughout the winter, and they seem to be miles ahead with that kind of thing. They're also more likely to bash their heads than a cricketer have, really. But yeah, I think it's a good thing. Can I ask you about a current-ish situation? Darren and I are both from Essex, and personally speaking, I'm a big Aamir fan. Do you think that we'll see him back in a Pakistan shirt, or do you think he's done?
I think he made his decision in a haste. First, he retired from international cricket, and then he decided to move away from ODIs and all that. The thing is, maybe he was more attracted to different leagues around the world, and he just wanted to confine himself with a limited cricket, like 20 overs. And I think he made the decisions in haste. Yes, he was struggling at one point. There's no doubt about it. But it happens to everybody in their career. That's where you have to G yourself up and say, okay, if I'm struggling, I have to look in the areas where I'm struggling, and I'm going to improve myself. He has the experience. There is no doubt about it, and he's got the ability. He can, swing the ball, the new ball. He's got a slow bouncer. He's got everything in his armory. I think he rushed into his decisions, and I think his decision and what he spoke when he was retiring, when he was challenging few others, it created a bad taste. So I think he has to, he has to sit down with the authority. It's always good to sit down with the authorities like PCB officials and all that, your coach, captain, and ask them, where do you see me in 3-4 years? What do you want me to do? How can I improve? So, if that gap is filled between Pakistan Cricket Board and the players, things would be different. Otherwise, you'll keep on seeing these things happening in our cricket. It's been happening for a long time, and I don't think it's stopping unless or until, there is coordination. Because any organization, if you talk about any organization, there has to be horizontal and vertical coordination. If it's not there, the organization is going to struggle. And that's what we saw with Aamir's case.
I hope to see him back. But actually, there are some very fine young bowlers coming through, as always, aren't there, in Pakistan? I mean, Shaheen Shah Afridi is a sight to behold, isn't he? And what thoughts on Rizwan? Did you watch him yesterday?
He's batting with responsibility. I remember when I saw him opening the innings in New Zealand. He was jumpy, he was nervy, and I thought, why is he being promoted? But, hats off. He really impressed me. He fought it out. Yeah. He deciphered a way to be able to deal with it. Now he's been consistent. The good thing about him is now he's batting with responsibility. He's not looking to play everything. He's not looking to send everything out of the boundary line. Now, if you see him closely, he's leaving the ball. He's working the ball into the gaps, because most of the players they misconstrue limited over cricket, like even T20. Singles and doubles are very important. And when you see young batsmen coming out, they're only thinking about hitting boundaries. If you can't hit boundaries, look for singles, rotate strike, ask your partner to do the job for you. So that's what Rizwan has been doing. He's batting with the responsibility. And that's why he's been consistent.
We have to mention Babar, who actually for me he's in the top 3. He's one of the very best in the world, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He makes me proud, because I remember when I was director of National Academies and game development, somebody brought him to the nets. I had players from all over Pakistan coming there, and we were like identifying talents that, okay, these are the players. They should be able to represent Pakistan in next 2 years, or after a year, or after 5 years. So he came along, and he was talented. There were a few flaws. We worked on his flaws, and we emphasized that you have to improve your technique. And I'm proud. We instilled something in him that batting conventionally is going to take you further. But if you fall into the trap of what people say, that contemporary cricket demands have changed, they haven't. The demands are the same. You need to improve your fitness, no doubt about it. And to be able to stay consistent, you have to keep on working on your technique. But he's got a good, solid technique, and he's been performing well. And if you try and explain Babar Zaman, you'll, in my opinion, you'll run out of superlatives. So let's say he's doing brilliantly for Pakistan.
How old was he when you first saw him?
He was about 13, 14.
Right, okay, interesting. So you can see the potential at that age.
Yeah, the potential was there. Yeah, like I said, he had to, improve his technique, which he did. And, he's a good learner. That's the best thing about him. He doesn't stop learning. And I hope he doesn't stop learning, because if he stops learning, that'll be the day. His downfall is going to happen.
I mean, I was going to ask you about the impact of COVID, which for me has been particularly hard on Pakistani people, because just before COVID hit, Pakistan was coming back, in terms of cricket, was coming back into the international scene. We had the PSL played on Pakistani soil, MCC toured, Sri Lanka came back, and the dark period was over, and it looked like, and for the fans to be able to see top class cricket locally was fantastic, and we got some signs of that from some of the early games of the PSL. And then for everything to be closed down by COVID must have been heartbreaking for Pakistani cricket fans.
look, these are unusual times. Nobody can do anything. You can be ultra careful, but such is the situation that you have to deal with these things. It was unfortunate. You remember the last PSL, a similar kind of a thing happened. Few foreign players had the COVID. Because of that, we had to call it off and had to complete it the next year. And now a similar kind of a thing happened. So you have to shrug your shoulders. And one thing you have to tell yourself, next time we need to be better prepared.
I'm going to ask you, we're going to wrap this up shortly. I wanted to ask you just a slightly different question. Just about Pakistan as a nation. I follow Pakistani politics quite loosely, but I follow it. And I was interested to hear your views on how things have changed, because there used to be a problem between metropolitan Pakistan, so Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, having very different attitudes and setups to some of the more, if you go up into the hills and up to the mountains, where people and villages and communities still live in an old-fashioned way, and they listen to their elders, and the structure's different. What problems does the politicians or governments have in trying to unite such different styles of living?
Cricket unites everything.
Great answer.
It does. But let me tell you, cricket is a game which has grown exponentially. And same is the thing which have happened in Pakistan. Initially it was just Lahore and Karachi, but it just went everywhere in Pakistan. The only problem we had to face was infrastructure. But infrastructure has been improved, and now you see not many players coming from Lahore. Very few from Karachi. You'll see most of the players coming from KPK, Central Punjab, or interior Sindh, which is a good thing. But that's where Pakistan Cricket Board needs to raise their game, and the politicians there really have to think that, since hockey, nobody's interested. Squash, we were number one, nobody's interested. Billiards, nobody's interested. Any other sport, golf, people are taking up golf in Pakistan. Any other sports, youngsters are not interested. The only thing they are interested in is cricket. So we have to create facilities wherever there is, new development. We have to make sure that we have a couple of cricket grounds there. We have to, encourage communities to come out and participate in sports and all that. That's where I think PCB and our governments, they need to raise the game. And if we are able to do that, we'll provide more opportunities to the youngsters, and who knows how many out of them are going to represent Pakistan.
And these days you're behind the microphone quite a lot. What's your where can our listeners and viewers hear your voice next?
I'm actually traveling to Sri Lanka tomorrow for Sri Lanka and Bangladesh series, and after that it's going to be PSL, and after PSL it's going to be Sri Lankan League, so I'll be involved there. And also my YouTube channel, they can follow it. I keep on uploading vlogs there. We'll
give everyone a link. We'll put it at the bottom of the screen so that people can click across to your channel from us. But absolute honour and a pleasure, and really, really interesting chat. So from Debbie and I, many, many thanks.
Cheers. Likewise.